Welcome to this explainer. Let's jump right in, because today we're unpacking something so incredibly fundamental to our daily lives, yet when you really look at it, it's deeply weird. Honestly, it almost borders on magic. We're talking about the alchemy of trust and the absolutely fascinating history of global currency.
I want you to just stop and think for a second. What actually is the money in your pocket right now? I mean, pull out your wallet, look at a bill, or just picture those little plastic cards and the glowing pixels on your banking app. We stress about this stuff constantly. Wars are fought over it. We literally spend a third of our lives working for it. But if you strip away the national symbols and the fancy banking logos, what are you actually left with? Colorful paper, cheap metal discs, and digital numbers on a screen. So why do these things hold any power at all?
Well, to answer that, we've got a great roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The pocket illusion, 2. Unlearning the barter myth, 3. Early placeholders, 4. Minting coins and paper, 5. The fiat hallucination, and finally, 6. National identity. Let's get into it.
Starting off with Section 1, the pocket illusion, stripping away the magic.
Okay, so before we go any further, we really need to draw a hard, bold line between the invisible concept of money and the actual currency tools we use every day. See, money is an intangible concept. It's basically a representation of a store of value. Currency, on the other hand, is just the physical or digital manifestation used to move that money around within a region. Think of it like this. Currency is just the vehicle. It's the delivery mechanism. Money is the abstract idea, that stored energy resting securely inside it.
Moving right along to Section 2, unlearning the barter myth, fixing the fiction of early trade.
Right, so look at the standard story we've all been taught since grade school. You know the one. Hey, I'll give you 3 chickens for that pair of shoes. Well, anthropologists tell us that is mostly fiction. Yeah, early human societies actually operated on a highly complex, really tight-knit web of favors, trust, and communal debt. It's more like, I help you harvest your crops today, and it's simply understood by the whole community that you owe me later. It was a localized ledger, kept entirely in people's heads. No chickens required.
Which brings us to Section 3, early placeholders and giant stones, scaling human trust.
So as those early villages grew into massive, bustling cities, keeping track of who owed whom, that became impossibly complicated. You couldn't just trust some stranger from the next town over on a handshake, which forced humanity to expand its circle of trust. We desperately needed a universal placeholder for value. And if you look at this timeline, you can see how that circle of trust evolved chronologically. We go from 600 BC with Lydian coins, right through to the 9th century with the invention of Chinese paper currency, jumping way ahead to 1971 when the US severed the gold standard and landing right here in our present-day era of digital fiat currency. It is an absolutely stunning evolution. But you know, before we hit those formal milestones, humans chose some absolutely ridiculous placeholders. I mean, in ancient China, they used cowrie shells. In parts of Europe and Africa, they used salt. Actually, fun fact, salt was considered so valuable that Roman soldiers were sometimes paid with it, which incredibly is exactly where we get the word salary. But then there's Micronesia.
The undisputed champions of bizarre early money were the people of Yap, a tiny island where they used rye stones. These things were massive limestone discs. We're talking weighing thousands of pounds, with a big hole carved right in the middle. Obviously, you're not putting one of those in your pocket. If you bought something, you didn't physically move the stone. You just verbally agreed with the seller that the giant rock sitting in the center of the village now belonged to them. There is even a story where a crew was transporting a stone across the ocean and it sank to the absolute bottom of the sea. But because everyone in the village agreed it was down there, the family who owned it still got to spend it. The physical object literally didn't matter. Only the collective agreement mattered.
All right, Section 4, minting coins and paper receipts, the birth of standardized value.
As you can imagine, transporting heavy stones or literal mountains of salt quickly became a logistical nightmare, sparking some massive technological upgrades. Let's walk through the steps. Step 1. In 600 BC in Lydia, which is modern-day Turkey, King Alyattes minted the first official currency. These were electrum coins, a natural mix of gold and silver stamped with a roaring lion. Suddenly, trade exploded because you didn't have to weigh anything, you just had to count standardized coins. Step 2. Flash forward to the 9th century during the Tang Dynasty. Chinese merchants realized that carrying heavy bags of coins across vast trade routes was terrible and honestly pretty dangerous. So they invented trusted paper receipts. Ingenious, right? And finally, Step 3. Those incredibly convenient paper receipts eventually evolved into the official state-issued money we recognize today.
But we have to be really clear about what that paper actually was. For a long time, the paper in our pockets was what's called representative money. Basically, it's currency backed by physical commodities. A US dollar bill, for example, functioned as a literal receipt that you could theoretically take and exchange for a specific amount of physical gold or physical silver sitting securely in some government vault. It was entirely tethered to a physical reality.
Which leads us to Section 5, the modern fiat hallucination, breaking the gold standard.
Okay, here is the pivotal moment where the rules of global economics completely, irreversibly changed forever. In 1971, the United States completely severed the tie between the dollar and gold, which quickly prompted the rest of the world to follow suit. Cutting that cord between the dollar and gold meant we entered an entirely new era of abstract value. The paper receipt, it was no longer a receipt for anything physical. It stood entirely on its own.
Welcome to our modern reality, fiat currency. The word fiat actually comes from Latin for let it be done, or by decree. So a fiat currency holds value purely through government declaration and collective shared trust. Today, nearly every major global currency, the euro, the yen, the pound, the dollar, they all have value for one single, fragile reason, because we all collectively hallucinate that they do.
To really put this into perspective, think about the sunken rhinestone on the left. Its value was agreed upon verbally despite sitting at the bottom of the ocean. Now look at the digital banking app on the right, just invisible numbers on a server that everyone agrees have value. We tend to think spending a sunken stone is an insane concept, but guys, it is exactly the same thing as the glowing pixels in our modern banking apps. They are completely identical concepts of shared trust. Mind-blowing, right?
But we have to acknowledge this is a really fragile system. When that shared trust vanishes, the currency collapses. And history is absolutely littered with catastrophic examples of this. Just look at the Weimar Republic hyperinflation in the 1920s, the devastating Zimbabwe economic crisis, or Venezuela's modern-day hyperinflation. In the Weimar Republic, for example, they printed so much paper money that people literally used it as wallpaper. They burned it in their stoves for heat. Why? Because the shared belief in its value evaporated overnight. When the collective belief breaks, the money instantly reverts back to being just colorful paper.
Let's look at our final topic, Section 6, currency as national identity. More than just economics.
Beyond just buying things, the physical bills in our wallets actually act as a mirror for the nation that issues them. Every single currency tells a story. Just look at these elements. You have banknote portraits reflecting national heroes, distinct materials used for printing, and of course, their power on the foreign exchange market. These aren't just practical design choices. They hold deep secrets and massive geopolitical weight. They are profound expressions of a nation's history, its culture, and its struggles.
As this quote so perfectly summarizes, currency isn't just economics. It is the ultimate expression of a country's identity. It's this invisible, almost magical force connecting culture, history, and global markets, being passed back and forth between us every single day.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. What story does your local currency tell about your nation's history? I challenge you, right after we finish here, go pull out a bill from your own wallet. Look closely at it. Check out the hidden symbols, the historical figures, the watermarks printed right there in your hands. Try to decode the story you carry around with you every day. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the alchemy of trust. Keep questioning the world around you and keep learning.